Welcome to a little special edition of Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I have a special guest that I want to talk with. Siaka Massaquoi is an LA Hollywood actor who was in the movie Lady Ballers, but he's also a part of the Republican Party out in Los Angeles. He was recently arrested by the FBI for his activities on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. Again, that happened 3 years ago. He got arrested, I believe, on November 30th or the day after the premiere. They had a special premiere of Lady Ballers, a movie that I told you guys I really loved and enjoyed. Had a special premiere here in Nashville. Siaka flies back home with his wife. The FBI is waiting for him at the Burbank airport to arrest him. They put him in jail overnight, make him post a $1,000 bond. Misdemeanor charges that don't seem to be all that serious. I think he'll be back in court on Tuesday, December the 12th. Siaka, welcome to the show. Thank you for making time for us today. Before I say anything, I just want to take care of some light work first to say, Lady Ballers is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I can't believe they did it with so many actors who aren't actors. How they pulled that off is incredible. You have more experience than I do, and I know you're involved in the movie, and so you probably got a bias, but that was incredible to me.
Man, first off, thank you for having me on, Jason. I've been a huge fan ever since you were back with ESPN and then Fox Sports, and I've loved everything that you've been doing. And then going to Outkick, and now here doing your own Fearless. So this is a big honor to be here. But Lady Ballers, man, I'll tell you this. This was Dallas Saunier, who's the main producer of Daily Wire for all their content. Him and I talked a while back, and I know this was a passion project for Jeremy, and he wanted to do something funny, and I agree. And it is something that, for me personally, as an actor, I believe probably the biggest way we can fight the culture that we're facing right now, a lot of this stuff, is in comedy. You know, I always like to use what the Daily Show did was made it okay for leftists to ridicule conservatives, right? So that every conservative idea that came out we can already start chuckling at it because it's ridiculous. Huh? And then Jon Stewart had the cover to hide going, I'm just a comedian. So we don't necessarily move in that. We're a fact-based side that wants to go 1 + 1 = 2. But to capture the heart, movies like Lady Ballers, what I've done with Babylon Bee, with Californians Move to Texas, and these sketches that we can come out, and that way we can release some of the pressure valve that goes on with these conversations. And we're able then to have, when people can laugh at it, they can then start to think about it without the fear that's wrapped on it, like I'm going to get canceled, or my family's not going to invite me to Thanksgiving, or I'll get censored on social media. Lady Ballers, I believe, is going to come. We're going to look back, and it's going to be a cult classic that helps shift entertainment back to being entertaining again. And I'm just honored to be a part of the movie.
Siaka, I've argued since the inception of this show, and really since I left FS1 to be independent, where I could say whatever I wanted. My argument has been two professions have let us down and haven't protected the public square: ministers and comedians. And so this show is supposed to be one part ministry, one part comedic relief, because if you understand what ministers and comedians do, they create the room for people to talk about and think about uncomfortable truths. Ministers are supposed to hit that pulpit, say things no one else is licensed to say, and their followers leave out of there having dealt with some uncomfortable issues, and now they know how to talk about it, and it provides space for everybody else to talk about it. Comedians have that same license to ridicule and make fun of and just widen the public square and widen the conversation, move the Overton window. And comedy is such a great way to deliver truth in an inoffensive way, or a way that doesn't make people turn immediately defensive, because you're laughing and it's fun. Whereas if someone just delivers the truth without any humor, it provokes people to get very defensive. So I agree with you. I think that I loved What Is a Woman. I thought Matt Walsh did a terrific job, and I think it's an important movie. I actually think Lady Ballers is more important because it allows us to laugh at the ridiculousness of what the left is doing.
It's the gaslighting that they do that within the last 8 to 10 years has been kind of this shield against, as you're being gaslighted, when they were like, oh, it's mostly peaceful, even though there's fire burning behind you. And you're like, wait a second. No, I got to talk about the fire. And they were gaslighting you right to your face. And what comedy allows you to do is laugh at it. So when they try to put it up as for real, you dismiss them already. And I agree with you 100% with the ministry and comedy. I ran for local office for Assembly District back in 22. And one of the points that we wanted to hit was go after churches, because churches, and I'll use the entertainment kind of view on this, churches are your PG-13 movies. Rated R movies is only like the father and the mother can go. PG-13, you can get the father, the mother, the teenager, the young kid, the grandpa. You get the whole family coming, right? So as a conservative going on in LA, where am I going to have the most impact? At the churches, right? So the way I look at it, so then I go back to, how did Jesus tell stories? He didn't just go 1 + 1 = 2. He didn't say, I'm Lord, and if you don't follow me, you're going to hell. He didn't just say that. He told stories. He captured the heart. So if we, as a conservative movement in here, we need to tell our stories and we need to capture their heart. And comedy is one of the hardest ways to do it because it's hard to make people laugh. But when you can, it's a reason why Dave Chappelle is, in a sense, Teflon to a lot of these cancellation attacks, because he's been so beloved from pushing the envelope to black white supremacists on the first episode of his sketch show to his trans jokes that he's saying now. We're seeing that comedy allows us to be beloved. And then people who are hardened, their hearts have been hardened, they can soften up, and it gives us a space just to be heard. And so we have to use both tactics, because just being right, that hasn't really worked for us over the last, 8 to 9 years, because we've seen what's happened. We have to start to capture the heart and tell our stories. Don't let them tell our stories. We tell our stories. We create our own celebrities. We create our own fun. We don't need to make sure Hollywood likes us again. We have enough people, enough want over here. Lady Ballers is an example of that. We just need to do our own thing, and people will come over to the party.
All right, so Siaka, walk me through your interaction, your action on January 6th. Why were you there? What did you do? And when did the FBI first reach out to you and that well, hey, there's some sort of problem here? Walk us through a little bit of that.
So I like it was a nice way of saying first reached out to you. Their first reaching out to me was behind a gun, but that's a whole nother, we'll get there. So for me, at this point, January 6th, it was the third time I've been to DC. I went for a blazetv event the first time, Candace Owens, and it was right after Trump had COVID, so it was the first time he spoke in front of anyone after his COVID. So we went there for that. Went for the second time, and again, the second time was after that big first event where people got violent. You saw a lot of Antifa beating up people, sucker punching. This time I went, it was extremely peaceful. I probably never felt more safe than I had even from the Beverly Hills rallies, which I was participating in back in June of 2020. When I went to January 6th, I went there with a friend. We stayed at the JW Marriott right across the street from the Freedom Plaza. Trump was speaking at the Rose Garden, but it was so packed that we were over by the Washington Monument, and we had to hang out over there. Right next to it was Filipinos for Trump. They had a nice little sign out there. It's cold, so we're there. We're in it, and at this point, I'm in media, so I'm hearing a lot of the same messages Trump was saying over and over about the numbers and all that. So it was more about just being there to support than hearing anything new. I'll be honest with you. So afterwards, we're done, and he's like, I know you're going to go over there peacefully and patriotically protest. We start to head over there. Me and the friend I was with were like, we're done. Let's go back to the hotel because it's too cold. I've been to enough rallies where I'm not going to just sit there and go, that was just where I was in my space. So we went back to the hotel. And so I'm there and I go, well, let me turn on the TV and see what the news is talking about, because I wanted to see how they're going to spin this movement and this situation here that was, when we were there, completely a lot of fun, a lot of families were singing. It felt very just loving, really, much like the last 2 times I was in DC. So I turned on MSNBC and they had a reporter there being on somber, talking about it's a dark day and there's blood on the ground and shots were fired. And then you see 2 police cars go by them. And I'm thinking, she's lying. I'm going to go down there, find the camera crew, stand behind them and be that crazy. The joke is, why every time there's somebody killed in the hood, they have the dumbest person behind the camera doing all, like, I wanted to be that, but on the opposite, right? I wanted to be back there going, you guys are lying. So I put my boots on. I commenced to walk from the Freedom Plaza by where the JW Marriott is, where we're staying, down to the Capitol, which is about a 27 to 30 minute walk. So all in all, I didn't get down there till an hour after everything that now we know happened when it came down to the violence. No idea it even went on. As I'm even walking down there, people were walking back and they're saying, I asked them, I go, hey, is it over? Everyone done? They're like, no, people are still hanging out. So I'm thinking, based on the first 2 times, it's basically a bunch of pro-American MAGA lovers walking around, kind of doing it. It felt more like a festival at that point. So I get closer. I run into a friend of mine. We ended up doing an interview. Somebody wanted to interview us. Right by the scaffold where the American flag was, people start singing the national anthem. I walk up the scaffold and I start smelling a little bit of remnants of the pepper spray, right? So I didn't see any pepper spray happening when I was there, but you could smell a little bit of it in there. I was like, whoa, this must have happened and been kind of, crappy. At the same time, when I get up, I see there's some people still lined up, and you see security still lined up. Somebody had thrown a pepper spray canister. It hit one of the guards in the head, and he was just kind of like, and he moved away. And there was something I saw that was very similar to what I saw in Beverly Hills, because we had Antifa come to Beverly Hills, and they were trying to, in a sense, one week they were on one side dressed in all black screaming at us. The next week, a handful of them were dressed in Trump, pro-America outfits on our side, yelling at Antifa, basically trying to get us ginned up and excited to want to fight with Antifa. At that time in Beverly Hills, I grabbed the mic and was telling everyone, we didn't come here for this. There are women and kids and old people here. Let's go on our march. We didn't come here to fight these people over here. But it was something I'd noticed, because as I'm there were men grabbing other men and going, let's go, and like kind of trying to push them forward. And these guys are kind of standing looking at these guys like, nah, get off me. And again, it really stuck to me because of what happened in Beverly Hills. And the other side is, men don't push other men to follow them. Like, they lead the way and then you follow. They don't push other men to lead the way for them. So I noted that as something weird. So then as I'm walking around, I'm recording, I'm checking things out. Some guys like saying like they're hiding and they're like cowards and all this and that. And I'm filming. Some of the glasses were broken on the outside. And I see that doorway now looking back, that's been that infamous doorway where people first push through. We're going over there. One guy's like, this is where they're letting people in. Okay. So we're walking. I get close and it was like, it was as if you were going into a football game and you were just shuffling with the crowd. And you're just going, I have my phone on because I wanted to record it just in case they try to say it wasn't what it was. So I'm recording. They stop us. I get past the threshold, maybe about a foot or two. And they stop us and we're just kind of standing there. And this is all open record. People can look it up on the court documents. You see me reaching and look like with my hand reaching here, like showing that I don't have access to this place completely and that I'm being stopped. There's police standing all around there. No one has said for us to do anything except for they're just stopping us there. I'm recording. One guy in all full riot gear, he walks up and he's like, hey, I need you guys to go that way. Okay. And you'll see in the video I posted on X and I even have my own version of the video, what you see on my phone, you see me holding. I said, okay, we're going to do this peacefully. We're being reasonable. And then I even turned back and I'm like, watch us. We're going to be reasonable. As you see on the video, I'm like smiling because, again, there's nothing that I saw where it was like outside of some glass being broken. There's nothing where it's the storming of the castle or, storming of the Capitol, people fighting. But I didn't see any of that. I just saw there was stuff broken. The cops were standing there. Riot gear people were standing there, not even moving to interact, just kind of talking back or just standing there quietly. When that one guy came up to me, told us to leave, I said, okay, we will. We're being reasonable. I turn and I say to everyone, all right, guys, go out the other way. One of my charges is knowingly trespassing. Does that sound like someone who knowingly trespassed you, that walked in an open door and when told to leave by authorities, not only did he leave, but he also told other people to leave. So he was transmitting a message that was given to him by authorities. So then I walked out. I walked around a little more, took pictures with a few people who I saw that I recognized from whether they're online or from back at Beverly Hills. And then I left. And as I was walking away, I remember thinking, I looked over to the side and saw a bunch of cars weren't burning. And I laughed. I turned to someone who walked with me and I go, you know what's funny? If this was a BLM riot, all those cars would be destroyed right now. And a few people started laughing. And that was pretty much it. And that was the last time I thought about it as anything negative until, of course, you fly home. I get back to LA and it's the insurrection and it's the worst attack in American history. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, really? Like, we've had whole part of the south side of Chicago have been burned down. That's where my mom had lived at the time. I grew up in Chicago. And she was living down there. And in the summer of love, when a 6-month-old was shot in a stroller midday around the corner from her house, I was like, Mom, you got to move. And there wasn't a word when out of 250 people killed, 73 were Black. We didn't hear nothing from BLM about all the Black people killed in that destruction over there. But I turn around and they're framing this as worse than 9/11, as worse than Pearl Harbor. I'm like, whoa. Like, what's going on? And we see how everything got ramped up and it got turned up even more. People started to get raided. And I thought to myself, well, I've been pretty vocal about my position in the culture war right now. We'll work with PragerU and go into the Trump rallies. To me, I'm like, I know I didn't do anything wrong, anything knowingly wrong, anything violent. So to me, I'm like, they shouldn't come. But I wasn't going to be surprised if they decided to, because I saw that they were going at people's homes and the way they were raiding people. Didn't matter who you were or what level you were involved. So I wasn't surprised that they came. And on June 10th, they ended up coming to my house about 5:45 in the morning, guns drawn, ARs. They grabbed my roommate and they took out my godsons, who were 3 and 6 at the time. Other roommates got taken out, and my room is down the hall. So I hear them and I'm waking up to this and I'm just kind of groggy. I open the door and I see it was like a Call of Duty video game. And all I see was them turn from looking one way with their boom, right down the hallway. 2 guys, different, they had their guns. All I could see is their silhouette because the light was in my face, hands up. And I just said, please don't shoot my dog, because my dog just ran out of my room because she's like, what's going on? That's really all I had time to say. They pulled me out of my house. They cleared the house, as they said. I asked multiple times for a lawyer. The guy said, this is not an arrest warrant. This is just a search. It's not what this is. It's just a search. And I was like, yeah, well, I want my lawyer. Let me see the warrant. And it took about an hour and a half before I got to see the warrant. I'd never really got a chance to stop and call my lawyer at the time. They took my computer. They took my cell phone. They took flash drives that had nothing but headshots or anything under. They took my journals, including one that I used for a program because, I'm a recovering alcoholic. They took my 2 MAGA hats because they said that's what they saw me wearing on their CCTV. And then they left. And we talked about it. We tried to get the word out that this is what they did and this is how they came to my house, and they're doing this to other people. It didn't gain as much traction to, kind of, especially not as much as what this has. But for those 2 years, every time I flew, I was being searched. I would have to go check in at the front desk first for about 45 minutes. I missed a few flights that way, not initially knowing that I was on this list. I go to TSA and they do the full body search, as well as go through the machine twice. They go through all my stuff. They check me up and down. They make sure I'm not, don't have anything. And then when I get to the gate, they do it all again. So I'm searched twice before I even take off from the flight. And now we know with Operation Quiet Skies that they have air marshals are following people like myself and anyone they deem connected to anything January 6th. So for 2 years that was going on. Work hasn't been more as consistent because people are afraid of if they're connected with me, then the FBI is watching them. And I get it because they have all my stuff. And like you mentioned earlier, we're coming back from Nashville. We had a great experience and a great moment hanging out with the guys there. And you know how you remember, because I met you at the Daily Wire premiere for Terror on the Prairie. And you saw how nice they kind of do their thing there, and they have the whole movie theaters rented out so we can move through comfortably. Like we're building that feel of the excitement Hollywood can do, except for with good projects. So we hop on the plane, we come back, and getting off the plane, it was really weird. I didn't expect anything to happen, but as we're getting off, and I look over and I see there are people like just kind of looking at me a little differently. And as I get off, my wife and our friend Amber, who's in the movie as well, they were a little further ahead of me. And as I get off, before I could get close to them, this woman walks over and she's like, Siaka Massaquoi, we're with the FBI. Can you come with us, please? What? 2 guys right on either side of me. Come on, man. We were going to take you in. You're under arrest, or we're arresting you. I was like, for what? And he goes, for what? I go, no, tell me, why am I being arrested? And the guy's like, he's like, come on, man. We're not trying to embarrass you. I go, it was too effing late. We're on the tarmac of the airport right now. People are seeing me get arrested. It's too late for the embarrassment thing. What am I being arrested for? And the guy was like, well, it's related to January 6th. I was like, I didn't do anything wrong on January 6th. The other guy's like, no, let's not talk about it here. I go, he brought it up, and so they separated me from my wife. They were able to give my stuff to her. So she took my phone and, keys, wallet, and all that good stuff. Ended up the agents took me to holding at Monterey Park because LA was closed at the time. Fortunate enough, I was really the only one there. There was only one other guy there. He was drunk, and they were holding him in a drunk tank. It sucks because you want to be mad at the agents and be like, the agents are just terrible people. You almost want them to be terrible people. But like I said before, the agents, they were decent people who are, to me, making wrong decisions. We had pleasant conversations. I actually got to talk to him about Jesus and God majority of the time. One guy is a Catholic, and he was like, I was like, are you like other Catholics, or do you read the Bible? And he said, oh, come on, man. And I'm like, well, did you read the Bible yet? He goes, not yet. I'm like, well, there you go. So we started talking about that. That night in jail by myself, after doing a little workout, I got on my knees and I did the Lord's Prayer like 15 plus times. The jailer came over and asked me if there's anything you could read. And I was like, oh, I'd love it if you had the Bible. So she came back with the Bible. I was fortunate enough to fall asleep that night holding and reading the Bible. The next day, and we had to go to U.S. Marshals to go to court and do all that stuff. And, I'm in the holding cells with these, in a sense, hardened criminals. One guy was the cliche white supremacist, a neo-Nazi, tatted up from the neck down, 6'2", big white dude. And him and I started talking about Jesus all the way till we went to court. And it's him, myself, and 3 other cats were in the holding cell. We're in the transport. We're doing everything. We're just talking God, man. And we're just talking like, well, this book is this. And, it's about God over here, helps you out here in our decision making. And we start talking about books like Count of Monte Cristo and the C.S. Lewis compilation. And before court started, and we're in the back in this holding cell, that big dude, he turns to me and he's like, hey, man, you mind praying for us? And so we ended up sitting there praying right before we went to go see the magistrate. The guys asked me to pray, and we're praying for just not to be released, or not for any of that stuff, but just to continue to trust in the Lord, because that's the only truth that wins out. We can be like, Lord, give me $1 million from the lotto, but that's not really what he wants from us. It's just to trust in him. So we had that prayer, was able to each guy, unfortunately, they didn't get a chance to get out. But when I came up, and Jason, this is the part that, all of it really blows my mind. But when I walked into the courtroom, and this was just for my bond hearing, to be able to not spend the weekend in jail, I come out, and my wife included, there were 15 people from my church, people from the community that were just there on this afternoon on Friday. And as I walk out, everyone, boom, stands up, including pastor that married my wife and I, amazing women that were from the church. They just stood up ready for me, ready to be there to support. And when you go through some tough stuff, it really blows your mind when you really see people that step up for you. We got there. The magistrate was really reasonable. The DA seemed like he was just kind of taken aback by the level of what was going on for misdemeanors. Even to the point where, and I'll tell you like how God was working, even to the point when the magistrate finally was like, okay, you're done. You can go. You can be released. I had to still go back and do the processing stuff. Now, when I left the court, I didn't know I had to sign paperwork in order to be let out. And the DA had to sign paperwork. DA left, I left. Everyone was like, the clerk was like, well, if you can't do it, he's in here all weekend. One of the women that goes to church with us takes off. Boom, I'm going to go find him. She heads down all through the courthouse, running around, goes down to the parking, finds him on his phone, getting ready to leave. She's like, we need you, grabs him, brings him all the way back to the courtroom. Gets my lawyer to sign on my behalf. He signs, for the state. Clerk was about to leave. People were like, we'll give you a ride home. Mind you, this whole time I'm being transported thinking I'm done. I'm going home. But the Lord is still working until the end. He's still working there just from the people who showed up and were able to get me released. And yeah, I was able to be reunited with my wife right then and there after I got out from the marshals and able to spend the night home. It was wild. And one thing I kept saying to them, you guys didn't have to move like this. You could have called me. I would have came in. And the guy finally said, seriously, bro, would you have come in? I go, I got a wife who's 24 weeks pregnant. I'm vice chair of the LA County GOP, the largest county in the country. I do entertainment here in LA. Part of my organization, Hollywood for Freedom, is set up so we can be a database for people to use, good conservative, God-fearing, people for the industry here in LA. Where am I going? This is where I spent the majority of my adult life. Outside of Chicago where my mom lives, I don't really have anybody anymore. So I'm like, you could have hit me up. You could have contacted me. And, now we're waiting to go into court tomorrow and, they transferred to DC already. So it'll be a telecommunication call for our first hearing, hoping that it comes back here to Los Angeles and we can ultimately just get this stuff thrown out because it's ridiculous.
So I want to ask a couple of quick follow-ups just for clarity. How much time could you possibly face on these misdemeanors?
A year. If the judge wanted to do a full throw the book at me, it could be a year. That's what these misdemeanors come with.
And then let's go all the way back to January 6th. From the time you leave your hotel after you return home from the rally, you go to your hotel. From the time you leave to your hotel to the time you're back at your hotel or decide to leave, how much time are we talking about here?
So about a 30-minute walk there and 30-minute back. And I was probably there for about 30 minutes altogether from the grounds of getting to the grounds, walking up, kind of checking things out, literally bumping into friends and going, whoa. And then we start talking and laughing. And then some lady's like, I recognize you guys from Beverly Hills. We do an interview that's maybe 10 minutes to walking up the scaffold, walking around. So I would say maybe overall another like hour and a half of everything until I was back into the room. But that's like the walk is 30, that's an hour and another 30 to 35.
And then how many minutes were you inside the Capitol?
71 seconds.
And that I want to play that clip before we go. Play the clip of I think we have his 71 seconds inside the Capitol.
I'm trying. The door is fucking don't change. Yeah, this is just the beginning, man. I'm literally trying to move.
Not today. It's like the bad journal head when you gotta take a
Child Filter Convention needs to burn.
Did they get into any of
Hey, Calf.
6519.
I'm trying. Step back. Hey, I'm inside the building, dude, but the kitchen's out. Where are you? And to be honest, I'm trying, bro. You tell them.
Hey guys, open up a
Tell
hole
them in
so
front of
these
me.
people can get out.
Tell them in front of me.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm literally trying to go.
Yeah.
We gotta wait for the people above.
I got you.
We're gonna work it out. I'm trying.
This guy here's been helping us. He's good.
Bad
Thank you,
cops.
brother.
Bad cops. Bad cops.
And so for the past 2 years, every time you travel, you're basically treated like a criminal. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I've been flying by myself since I was 7 years old. An average over the last 8 years, I've averaged about 5 times flying every year. That's like part of my job. So it's not a security thing to know who I am because I've been traveling for so consistently for at least the last 8 years by myself since I was 7. And so now we're all of a sudden they don't know who I am, or they know who I am, and I'm on a list. They got to check every time.
And then when they meet you out at Burbank, do they cuff you up and take you in?
Yeah. Yes, they do. They cuffed me up, and again, for being cuffed up, they were really reasonable in the sense that they were like, "Look, we're gonna make sure it's not trying to hurt you." But yeah, they cuffed me behind my back, and I'm just like, guys, everything, and people who know me for years, I'm not a violent person. That's not my nature. And the way they moved, and they pulled me aside and they cuffed me away, and they did everything. I'm sitting in the car, behind back, with my arms behind my back, as uncomfortable as possible, and everywhere. By the time we got to the marshals the following day, the rest of the time I had to deal with being chains around my waist, cuffed on my wrist and my ankle. So the whole next day I was cuffed like it was, like you see in the movies, and shuffling all around to do anything.
And take the tatted up white supremacist guy, and there's 2 or 3 other guys. What kind of charges were they facing? Do you know?
So the white dude, again, really sweet. He ended up being a sweet guy. He was in there. He was serving 18 years, and he was trying to get early release. But the fact that he had just recently stabbed somebody in 22, who was, I guess what he told me, he was messing with him, and so he stabbed that guy and was coming to have to discuss if he can still get out after stabbing the guy in 22 after being there for 18 years. One other guy was in there for armed robbery. Another guy was in there for, I want to say it was another guy was in there for assault. And I don't remember the 4th guy, but yeah, they were, real, the real crimes is the way I look at it. They were real crimes in comparison.
And then this move of trying to adjudicate this in D.C. is because it seems like all these January 6 people are facing Democrat voters in the jury pool and Democrat judges and the whole nine. And so what do you think your chances are of having this thrown back to California? Because it seems like their strategy is to have all these things done right there in D.C., where they know the jury pool hates Trump, thinks MAGA is the KKK, and would think that, although I have interviewed people that say the black MAGA supporters are really getting treated better than the white MAGA supporters by these jurors.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's I think I think this is where the ideology meets the road. And if there was any type of silver lining in this, is the fact that I am a Black conservative in one sense of the word. I do think that because I've been in entertainment, they wanted to make just like the raid. The raid was loud, right? They put it in the newspapers. Everyone, but they put it LA Times, Daily Mail. This time around, when this happened, in a sense, our side jumped on it first. So they got to tell our story before the other side told the story. So when the LA Times 2 days later wrote about it, it was kind of like, it wasn't really as hard as it could be. But them pushing it back to DC now, from a procedural standpoint, it's what they have to do because that's where the warrant came out. The warrant came out of DC. So it's like if you went and robbed Atlantic City and then you go to Tennessee, they go, we know you're the guy that we need to get. Tennessee, can you respect to hold us? Yes, that's what Tennessee is doing. So it had to bounce back to DC. Now what we can do is go, because of those factors you brought up, because we've seen reports and we've seen that how it seems like they're not getting a fair trial there, we can file to have it moved back to LA, which we are going to do tomorrow. If that happens, that's one of those uphill battles, but as part of the process of court is to plead for anything you can, get the change of venue, plead to get the charges completely dropped because it's ridiculous. All these points. One hope that comes in is that the judge that I received, a lot of people, lawyers from DC, friends of friends, have told me that's possibly the best judge I could have gotten in this situation. It's still DC, I hold out hope only in the Lord because the law doesn't necessarily seem to not be something that is working for everyone especially the last 3 years. So all these factors, when people say it's a good judge, but then people say it's in DC, they're positive over here and there's negatives over here. All I can do is just be right with him and be prepared to face whatever comes my way because I can't control those things. There's nothing I can do to control. Like if evil is going to try to work as hard as it can, okay, what can I do over here? I can make sure my wife is taken care of. I can make sure with my skill set, I'm talking to people like you to get the story out so that she can be taken care of. And then on the other side, I can make sure that with this little platform I have, people go, this misdemeanor arrest isn't the first one. It didn't just happen to someone like me because of, my platform or whatever. This has been happening to grandmas and grandpas and just your average blue collar worker around the country for the last 2 years. So if it's something that at the most that I can do is go, hey, it's not just me. This is happening to other citizens and everyone should be afraid. Everyone should be pissed that this is happening in their country. Everybody, not just because it happened to me and my platform and, the things that I'm connected with. If that warms their heart to start listening, that's one of the best things we can hope for.
Siaka, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for your courage. We will be praying for you. I'm so glad I had you on today. I'm so glad you made the time. It reminded me, one, I'm getting on my website here for Sarah McAbee, and her husband's facing a long time in jail, and I've had her on the show, and there was something I promised to do that you just reminded me to do. And so we will stay in touch. Would love to have you come back on the show, update us, and maybe even talk about other things, maybe Lady Ballers too. I hope there's a sequel to that, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jason. We have a lot more comedy coming from over here. And if anyone wants to help, check out our Gifts and Go /Siaka. We're doing well. The support that's coming on is amazing. Again, we don't know what they're going to do and how much we're going to need. But, between the prayers and support, we just thank you all, everyone, Jason, including you, starting with you guys. Thank you for giving us the time to be heard. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Siaka. All right, that's it, and that's all for us. You want some holiday gifts? You're struggling for ideas? Go to shopblazemedia.com. jason.com/fearless. Use my promo code Jason25 for 25% off all orders at the Fearless shop. That's it for us today.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want